Hi, here we are on the projects page. You can get here via the create project button in the project menu, or by going to the project list, clicking on one of the projects in the report, or clicking the new project button. So you'll find that the project details page is broken into three sections. We've got our project level information up the top here. We have our phase information in the middle, and then project expenses down the bottom. We can get started by naming our project. Let's call it Dancing House, and we can give it a job code. We can do the same with phases, so let's add in 4 phases here. You can add in as many phases as you want. Phases also have phase codes, so you can name them however you choose as well. And let's start adding in the durations of our phases. So we can use the date pickers here to select a date range. That's going to calculate a duration for us, and we can change the units. And we can change the units for the duration, so we can make it months here. We can edit the duration, make it 3 months, and it's going to change the end date here. You can also type in values, and then just add a duration, and the system will figure everything out for you. So I'll quickly just fill in the rest here. Going up the top, you'll notice that the project duration is the total of the phase duration. So if we change this down below, you can see the project duration increase up the top here. We can also edit the total duration of the phase by typing in numbers up the top here. We can make it 20 months instead of 12. You'll see it's a little bit uneven here, and that's because months range from 28 days to 31 days. And so as we stretch out the project, those sort of discrepancies start to show in the duration of the phases. If you want something more consistent, you can go through and just edit these values themselves and pick the particular dates you want for each phase. Same thing happens with the fee, the expense budget, and the hours budget for the project. So the fee is what you want to charge your client. And as we type in the value for each phase, you can notice up the top here the project value is totaling up the sum of each phase. Again, we can edit up the top here, so if we wanted this to be 120,000, it's going to modify all the stages below. An expense budget is how much you want to spend on the project, so you can do a little maths here if you want to. So we can multiply that by 0.8, and the system will figure out how to hit a 20% profit margin. And you can start to use this to sort of plan how much time and money you can spend on the project. You can also enter in hours here, but that's a bit more useful when we get down to resourcing. So let's open up a phase here, add some staff. And what you can do is link up your resource budgets to your phase budgets. So say we do want an expense budget of $24,000. If we click link to phase, it's going to distribute that expense to the staff and figure out the hours automatically. So we can do that like so. That results in a budget where the staff member's expense, which is their cost rate in the staff page. So maybe I could save that and show you where that is. So the expense is referencing the cost rate of the staff member, which is the staff member's pay rate plus the overhead expenses, and that's just a method of trying to distribute your office expenses into the projects themselves. So let's go back to our project, Dancing House. Scroll down here. So we've figured out how to, I guess, get an even expense for each staff member. This has calculated a number of hours for us, and we can click this link button again. And based off how, like whether you're hovering over the top half or the bottom half of the link button, it'll reference a different value. So if we hover over the bottom half and it says link to resources, it's going to total up the staff resources and turn that into the phase budget. If we click up the top and say link to phase, it's going to total up the hours and distribute them amongst the staff. So let's do link to resources here, and we can now see our hours budget for the phase. So you can start to use this to basically plan your projects, massage things for the numbers. So we might say, actually, we think it'll take 40 hours from Corb, 60 hours from Zaha, and 100 from Ryan. And we can see that we're hitting a 40% profit margin here. So maybe we do want to just see how many hours we can get in if we do stick to the 20% profit margin. So we can type in the 30,000, times it by 0.8, and it's going to recalculate those values, but this time it's keeping the ratios we set up before. So maybe a simpler way of showing this is maybe we could say Corb does 1 hour, Zaha does 1 hour, and Ryan does 2. So then when we adjust our expense budget, Ryan will always be doing double what Corb and Zaha are doing. So we can save that, and it's going to ask us to adjust our resource schedule because we've been playing around with those. First time you save the project, it'll automatically adjust the forecast for you. So what it's doing is it's starting to populate the forecast for your project. You can scroll along here and see the progress. We're getting a higher profit here because we haven't planned the expenses for the rest of the stages. Go back to the projects, we can add an expense. So we could say engineering occurs in documentation on a particular date. I'm just going to put it in May. It's going to cost us $5,000, and we're marking as billable because we're going to pass on that cost to the client. So when you invoice for this project after this date, it'll ask you if you want to pull in the expense into the invoice. You can save that, and again this will appear in the forecasts. So we can see our documentation engineering expense here. It's not going to really affect the graph because we've marked it as billable, so the system is expecting revenue for that expense. And you can add as many expenses as you want. Up the top here, you'll notice some clients. This is mostly just, up the top here, you'll notice a client field. This is mostly for invoicing. So if you have no clients or contacts in the list like I do, you can just add one here. You can either import one from your accounting system or just create a new contact. So we'll have John Doe. And so we've got that client there. We've got cost centers here. So let's just save this. So we've got our cost centers here. Think of them like groups for your projects. So some people will set up residential projects, extension projects, institutional projects, and categorize the projects that way. This is pretty handy for creating reports in the future if you want to analyze projects of a particular type. The bill on section is basically how the system will automatically distribute the values here into your forecast. So the default is at the end of each month. So it's going to cut up our fee over 5 months in our revenue forecast, and same with our staff budgets. It'll cut up the hours across 5 months and distribute them into the forecast. The other option is at the end of each phase, so that's just going to dump this $30,000 at the end of August in your forecasts. So if you change the end date of your phase, and choose to update your forecast, it'll just move that $30,000 to the end date. Another thing you can do is you can create a copy of a project, so that's just going to create a duplicate of that project, pretty much exactly the same, and you can modify it from there. You can also delete a project. Just note that you aren't allowed to have timesheets against the project if you delete it. So if you do need to move your timesheets to another project first, you can do that via the timesheet reports. Create some filters to collect all the timesheets for your project. So you can say all time and select a particular project. And you can select all those timesheets, edit selected time entries, and move them to a different project and phase. So that's it for the project details page. If you want information on the other tabs, please find them in other videos. Thanks.